Video games are probably the most immersive form of entertainment on the planet. They're fun, addicting, and sometimes even let you uncover something meaningful about yourself, like a new political opinion or a fetish.
And then,
I've invested countless hours into them over the years and have enjoyed all of them. But here's the thing, even when I enjoy a game, it rarely ever leaves a lasting impact on me. There are exceptions, obviously, but not many games can reach that level of connection with its players. So when I saw a game about a tiny bug guy running around murdering everything in sight, my first thought was, alright, so it's a simple platformer with some okay boss fights, great for killing a few hours, probably decent for an indie game, and something I'd forget the moment I close it. And it's on sale for $3, so why not? I bought it, played it for a bit, beat it, played the DLCs, researched the lore, named my firstborn after it, and dude.
Holy shit, this game is amazing!
Hollow Knight isn't just good, it's so well made, it's borderline suspicious. It feels less like they made a game and more like they surgically extracted my brain's deepest desires and turned them into gorgeous line art. Every single aspect of this game, whether it's the world building, the bosses, or even the sound of your little bug feet touching the ground, has been fine-tuned to absolute perfection. I've played plenty of great indie games before, but very few managed to hit near perfect marks across the board like this one. It's almost like Team Cherry made some kind of blood pact to figure out exactly what players wanted and then delivered it flawlessly. Even a Chinese spyware company wouldn't be able to understand their audience even half as well. The game doesn't waste time with a bombastic cutscene or a clunky tutorial. Instead, it begins with a quiet hunting poem penned by Monomon the teacher.
In wilds beyond, they speak your name with reverence and regret, for none could tame our savage souls. Yet you the challenge met. Under palest watch, you taught, we changed. Base instincts were retained. A world you gave to bug and beast.
The screen then fades to reveal an egg adorned with 3 faces. After the series sight, we finally get a cutscene of our protagonist, the knight, making his way through a desolate town. As he ventures forward, his gaze is drawn to something vast in the distance, and once he gets a good look at it, he descends into the dark depths below. Once this brief segment ends, the game seamlessly begins. You move forward, tackle a short parkour section, and defeat a few enemies. The tutorial is minimalist, giving the player a chance to grasp the controls without being overwhelmed by a flood of no-shit Sherlock text on the screen. It's all about letting you experience the movement firsthand rather than spoon-feeding you every little detail. As you continue forward, you come across several stone tablets in your path, each beginning with the same words, higher beings. At the end of this section, you break down a large door and descend into the second area of the game, Dirtmouth, the Fading Town. While you might not have understood most of what you've read earlier, just by walking around this town and listening to the haunting background music, you can already tell what most of this game is going to feel like. Hollow Knight does an incredible job in not just showing you what the world looks like, but also making you genuinely feel for the inhabitants still holding on within it. One minute you're talking to Elderbug, and then the other you're emotionally invested in a town that has like 3 fucking residents. No matter where you look, every corner of this game tells a story. The Forgotten Crossroads, well, they're just that, crossroads that were forgotten. Once upon a time, these paths were bustling with travelers and merchants all trying to make their way across Hollownest like it was the bug version of Route 66. Which explains why it's the most connected area in the whole game. Green Path, created by this fucking thing, wasn't even originally part of Hollownest. At some point, Un took a nice long nap and the Pale King swooped in, absorbing Green Path into his territory. What I personally love about this area the most is how it completely contrasts with the rest of the world. The color scheme and music give it this calm, almost welcoming vibe, like it's the game saying, here, have a peaceful break, you've earned it. That is, of course, until something tries to kill you in the next corner. Kingdom's Edge is also another area that just elevates the world building in this game to an insane degree. You see, this was actually where the Pale King, the guy we mentioned earlier, first showed up as a massive worm. Before Hollownest was even a thing, he shed his shell in the eastern part of Kingdom's Edge and then transformed into his smaller, more kingly form. But here's the kicker, his decaying corpse is actually what's responsible for all the ash falling all over Kingdom's Edge. See all those feathers falling around? Yeah, that's actually mold.
That's fucking disgusting!
Much like Green Path, Kingdom's Edge is one of the more vibrant areas in the game. However, unlike Green Path, you're constantly reminded of death, whether it's from the lovely mold or the corpses that keep plummeting down from the Colosseum of Fools, an area where bugs go to face other bugs that are corrupted by the Radiance, which is the virus that has turned this world into what you see now. It's like the game's trying to give you a colorful, pretty world, but it's also like, hey, don't get too comfy. Here's a dead body to remind you that life's a one-way ticket to oblivion. Also, I think it's pretty funny how, in an area where you're greeted with giant fucking grasshoppers. The most annoying enemy ends up being a flying bug with like 2 HP. By the way, remember those higher beings that the game was talking about earlier? Well, that's exactly what these two assholes are. Bugs that have ascended and in some ways even look godlike. But without a doubt, the area that gives you the most world building in this game is the capital city of Hollownest, the City of Tears. Once you get to this area and the text fades away from the screen, the scenery immediately captivates you. The metallic buildings stand out from the usual organic and bug-like architecture of Hollownest, and the music is this somber, slow piano melody that feels like it's echoing through the empty streets, perfectly capturing the feeling of loss and abandonment, all the while being accompanied by the sound of mysterious rain falling around you. It's beautiful, but in a way that makes you feel the weight of the city's history. However, none of this compares to when you finally make it to the center of the city, where you're hit with one of the most jaw-dropping cutscenes in the game, followed by an insane lore drop.
Memorial to the Hollow Knight.
What the fuck?
The Hollow Knight isn't you? Are you fucking serious, Team Cherry? All this time you've been playing as this tiny little bug knight thinking you're the main character, and boom, turns out there's this giant shadowy version of you just chilling in the center of it all. Yeah, you're not the hero. In fact, you might be the villain. Who fucking knows? Have fun figuring that out, asshole. Hollow Knight is filled with details like these across the world, and most of the time it's up to you, the player, to figure this stuff out. Where does the rain in the City of Tears come from? Why is this dead body? Oh, it's because of war. It's a world that doesn't just invite you to explore, it pulls you in emotionally, leaving you connected to even the smallest, most tragic remnants of its history. Again, this is a game about bugs. Now, do you have to figure this shit out? No, you really don't. As a matter of fact, you can go the whole game while ignoring the text and just fight the bosses. But why would you do that? Fucking idiot. The atmosphere is so thick and vibrant, it feels like you're swimming through it. Sometimes I'd even find myself just sitting on a bench or standing on a ledge, taking in the art and the music like I'm some kind of bug philosopher. And the sound design? Holy shit. Stuff like the rain in the City of Tears sounds so real you start checking if your window's open. Then you've got the echoes in the caverns, the subtle whispers of distant enemies, the sound of the map guy humming his neat little song off screen. All of it makes it feel like you're in an actual living, breathing world. There's really nothing better than getting attacked by these tiny, frustrating bugs while surrounded by these beautifully detailed parallax backgrounds. The character designs are also incredibly polished and well thought out, with most of them being based on real-life bugs and their behaviors. Like, Quirrell is a pill bug, makes sense, he's all curled up and chill. Elderbug, he's a Box Elder bug, old, slow, and kinda just there. And Grim? Yeah, I have no idea. He's like some theater kid's fever dream mixed with a Hazbin Hotel character. Most of the designs are simple, but they're so distinct you can recognize them just from their silhouettes. Like, no one's confusing Hornet with, I don't know, Zoth the Mighty. As for the bosses though, absolute chef's kiss. Take Nosk for example. This dude isn't even that important, but just look at him. He's like if your worst nightmare grew legs and decided to cosplay as you for Halloween. It's disgusting, it's terrifying, and I love it. Honestly, the bosses are probably the best part about this whole game. If you count the variations, this game has 47 different bosses in total. You see that? Do you fucking see that? No matter how difficult or easy you think some of these fights are, they almost always demand your full attention on a first playthrough. Sure, the game starts off easy enough, but those fights ramp up fast. Like this fat guy in armor. He's simple, sure, not difficult at all really, but it's not like you can just sit there and beat your dick to stock images of LeBron and still expect to win. You gotta focus, and I think the first boss that really made me realize just how well put together this game were the Mantis Lords. The fight itself starts off slow, right? The first guy jumps down, first girl jumps down. You beat her ass for a bit and figure out some of the basic patterns, but the real challenge kicks in when they start jumping you like it's a gang initiation. But what really sets this fight apart from the others in the early game isn't just the difficulty, it's the rhythm. I'm fucking sorry to say this, dude, but you're not beating them on your first try. And that's mostly because you haven't memorized their movements yet. But once you do, holy shit, every dodge, every perfectly timed strike feels better than peeling the plastic off a brand new phone screen. While it's still definitely one of the easier boss fights in the game, it's so well put together that it makes you feel like the game's just getting started and the real challenges are still ahead. It's like the calm before the storm. You're already impressed, but you know things are about to get way crazier. And they 100% do. Also, by the way, the whole reason the Mantis Lords are even guarding the entrance to one of the eeriest areas of the game, Deepnest, is because the Pale King made a deal with them ages ago to fend off the terrifying creatures that live there. Like, this isn't just some random fucking lore dump, it's actual world building that feels earned. The Broken Vessel, a vessel like you, we'll get to that in a minute, that's died and become infected by the Radiance. There's also the giant jellyfish that uses electricity like it's got an unlimited supply of power, and the Dung Defender, a former knight of the Pale King with with a scat fetish. However, the 3 boss fights in the game that stick out to me the most have to be Zote, Nightmare Grim, and the Hollow Knight. Starting with Zote, this guy is just the biggest loser imaginable. He shows up every now and then to call you a little bitch and then immediately gets himself captured. And once you beat him in the Coliseum of Fools, what does he do? He waddles back to Dirtmouth, steals your fangirl, and somehow becomes a literal god in the dream world. And this fight, man, what the hell were the devs smoking? Half of his attacks are just him falling on his ass and accidentally causing shockwaves, but he's still one of the hardest bosses in the game. And it's basically impossible to get a feel of that rhythm I was mentioning earlier because you have to keep one eye on the minions, which are constantly griefing you, and the other on Zote, who's probably plummeting out of the sky like a care package in Call of Duty. Even if you do dodge some of his initial attacks, you just end up bumping into something else on complete accident. And if you let him corner you, well, consider yourself fucked. Not literally though, there is another area in the game where that does actually happen to you. Then there's Nightmare Grim. Now, look, his previous version, Regular Grim, pretty challenging, you know, nothing too hard. Now, Nightmare Grim, on the other hand.
What the fuck? What the fuck? Let me fucking breathe, dude! Jesus Christ! Fuck.
Every time I heard his boss theme on my retries, I felt like a soldier experiencing shell shock for the first time. As soon as this fight starts, he rushes into you, barely giving you any time to react. And that's how most of this boss fight is. Through trial and error, you become better, and after you do finally kill him, you feel like you've completely overhauled your moveset, becoming a much better player in the process.
That shit was easy.
Grim is probably the best possible example of what I was talking about during the Mantis Lord's part. He's extremely difficult, but once you realize how he works, he becomes one of your favorite boss fights in the game. He challenges you to use everything you've learned so far to your fullest ability. You can't afford to take a single hit regardless of how much health you have, since the speed of this fight makes it easier for him to just keep piling on attacks. And those brief breaks you get are so nerve-wracking because you have no clue what he's gonna follow up with next. Oh, and did I mention that he's a DLC? That's free. Now we're on to the most important boss fight in this game, the Hollow Knight. But first, here's a little bit of a lore drop. So you see, this guy we mentioned earlier is actually the main character's dad, and also the dad to Hornet and this lovely gent here. After the Radiance started to spread across the kingdom, this guy got the genius idea to have thousands of children until one of them was fit to be a vessel to contain said Radiance. And the ones that were unfit, well, they were sent to this lovely place called the Abyss. Problem is, the Hollow Knight's purity was misjudged since unfortunately they had this thing called a consciousness, due to the fact that they were actually raised by the Pale King. And because of that, the Radiance started to leak out. While I wouldn't exactly call this boss fight easy, its difficulty is definitely a lot more manageable compared to Zote or Grimm's. What really sets this one apart though is the emotional gut punch it delivers. You know that this thing didn't really have a choice in becoming what it is, but it still went through with it because it loved the person that created it. And as you're fighting it, you can see it's practically a helpless child. The way it drags its sword across the ground, the way it screams out in agony and even trips over its own attacks, all of it is a desperate plea for release. And then when you do finally finish it, you're left with one of the saddest conclusions to a boss fight in history. This fight wasn't just about winning, it was about realizing you had to take down someone who never stood a chance in the first place. At least the game has multiple endings though. The world building and storytelling in Hollow Knight is extraordinary, and the content it has for only costing $15 is crazy. I know I said earlier in the video that you don't need to pay attention to the lore to play this game, but without it, the exploration and boss battles wouldn't even give you half the impact they initially do. That being said though, the combat is really fucking good even on its own. You start the game off with just a simple slash and soul heal, which works fine for a while. At this point, you're mostly just relying on your movement and reactions to handle enemies and obstacles. None of it is too difficult though, which makes sense since the early game is basically just one big sandbox to help you get comfortable with the controls. The boss arenas are all decently sized, usually giving you plenty of room to move around, which for the earlier bosses like this absolute unit right here is more than enough. However, since your nail has a pretty short range at the start of the game, you can just waltz up to certain enemies and start swinging, especially the ones with some form of dash attack. The combat is simple, sure, but it's how you combine it with your movement that really makes or breaks your experience. You shouldn't stand around and wait for the enemy to make the first move every single time, but panicking and grinding up the balls like an Amsterdam stripper is hardly any better. You've got to find that balance between being patient and knowing when to be on the offensive. As you explore, you'll eventually unlock charms and abilities that can completely change how you play. Charms in particular let you get very creative, granting you various abilities like extra health, a little minion, and And my personal favorite, the ability to smell like absolute dog shit. You can even combine it with the Spore Shroom, and then you got yourself a massive AoE fart cloud that poisons everything in its path. All of these do require varying amounts of charm notches though, so it's not like you can just stack the most powerful ones and breeze through the game. It's all about balance. You've got to decide whether you want more health, better damage, or a shield that constantly protects you. And when it comes to the new soul abilities you gain, the gameplay gets even crazier. Vengeful Spirit is essentially an energy blast you can use to deal damage from a distance, but if you want to get creative, you can also use it to hover in midair for a moment, giving you more time to dodge an attack or reach a platform. The dash ability makes maneuvering around enemies way easier, and when combined with the Monarch Wings, you're basically set for avoiding almost every type of attack for the rest of the game. Then there's Isma's Tear, and while it doesn't have any combat uses, it lets you access areas you otherwise couldn't, making exploration feel that much more rewarding. None of these abilities are just handed to the player though. This is still a Metroidvania after all. Their very existence out in the world gives you even more reasons to explore and clean up what's left of Hollownest. But even when you acquire most of them, it's not like the game suddenly turns into a cakewalk. Sure, you've got more tools at your disposal, but more options don't necessarily guarantee an easier time. For example, sometimes you're better off just jumping over something instead of trying to face through with the Shade Cloak and risk getting the timing wrong. Hollow Knight doesn't hand you an easy win. It gives you the tools, sure, but it's your skill and creativity that determines how far you'll go. Even basic stuff like the movement can be insanely satisfying if you know how to master it. Platforming plays a big role in this game, especially if you want to access secret areas. The way it integrates wall jumps, spikes, and even enemies to help you navigate is just next level game design. I highly recommend taking your time with this game and not rushing through each area. There's so much to see, and it's all on you, the player, to grow a pair and keep going despite whatever soul-crushing difficulty you face along the way. Even if you don't take the platforming into consideration, there's just a lot of stuff you can miss if you don't explore the game properly. Take Fog Canyon for example. You can find a bank here where you deposit all your hard-earned cash. Sounds nice, right? Except when you come back, you'll realize it was all fake. Yeah, fucko, they pulled the old switcheroo on you. But if you just wander around the City of Tears for a bit, you'll eventually stumble upon a door with a simple keyhole, where the banker is living her best life in a sauna, just waiting for you to beat the shit out of her. I remember during my first playthrough, I had no idea how to get past these dark energy walls, but instead of throwing in the towel, I kept exploring. I combed through every single crevice of this game like a Romanian searching for a wallet, and eventually I found what I needed. And because of that item, I was led to an incredible boss fight in the conclusion to one of the game's best characters, Quirrell. Quirrell is basically your tour guide through this game. He's like Sans from Undertale, but without the existential dread or the skeleton jokes. He gives you hints about where things are and what purposes they once served in Hollownest, despite having no clue who he is or why he's even there. That is, until you make it to the Teacher's Archives, where you fight this giant jellyfish boss, and afterwards it's revealed that Quirrell was once the apprentice of Monomon the Teacher, one of the Dreamers, and also the same bug that wrote the quote at the beginning of the game. Quirrell realizes his entire purpose has been to guide you, the player, to Monomon so you could kill her, which is what she would have wanted. Turns out, the mask he's been wearing on his head this whole time actually belonged to her, and it's what's been prolonging his life. And after you do kill Monomon, you'll find Quirrell one last time overlooking the Blue Lake, and in that moment, he pieces together one last mystery. The rain in the City of Tears, that huge unexplainable anomaly, was actually just water leaking from this massive reservoir. It's here during this quiet, reflective scene that you have the most emotional conversation in the entire game.
Again we meet, my short friend. Here at last, I feel at peace. Twice I've seen this world, and though my service may have stripped the first experience from me, I'm thankful I could witness its beauty again. Hollownest is a vast and wondrous thing, but with as many wonders as it holds, I've seen none quite so intriguing as you. Ha! My flattery returns only silent stoicism. I like that. I like that very much. Incredible.
If you haven't realized it by now, this game is really depressing. It's the story of a long-forgotten kingdom, its faded glory, and the shadows you have to exterminate. That being said, however, there are moments of hopefulness spread throughout the game. The mantises bow down to you as a sign of respect after you beat their rulers. You can give a flower to Elderbug back in Dirtmouth, give Cloth the courage to keep on going, and the Dung Defender is still playing with the shit. Why is this in the script? It's moments like these that make you feel like despite everything, there still might be hope for the bugs that still inhabit these areas. And I'm sure I'll be proven right when Silksong comes out. Are you fucking kidding me?